welcome. Thanks everyone for joining. I know you've all been waiting and incredibly excited for what is going to be the most watched webinar in GTM hiring for 2024.
Next one.
That is self-proclaimed.
The number one go-to-market webinar in the go-to-market hiring space.
Exactly, that's the one. So to start with, I think we'll run through some introductions. We'll do a quick summary on GTM landscape for 2024 in comparison to 2023. And then we'll dive into a few topics which we've already covered. So just to list them pretty quickly, we're going to go through skills hiring managers are prioritizing in their briefings, attributes that separate high-performing AEs from the rest, interview questions that surface the top 10% of AEs, and then we're going to go through some anecdotes, observations from completed searches at the end. Yeah, introductions. I don't know, Joe, do you want to kind of kick us off?
Yeah, lovely to see everyone that's joining today and everyone that's watching this afterwards. Thank you guys for joining on. I lead our go-to-market search practice for US and North America here at Stott, and obviously we focus on placing high-performing go-to-market teams, sales and marketing folks for some of the fastest-growing software, cyber, and tech services companies in the world. And yeah, this is what we live and breathe by the constraints of hiring the top performing sales talent, right, for these organizations as they're going through different scaling motions. So some really interesting takeaways. It's been an interesting year or two in the market that's changed a lot. So I think we've got some really interesting and tangible insights to sort of take away for anyone that's hiring or preparing to hire in the rest of this year.
Cool, thanks, Joey. So my name's Nick. I head up the go-to-market practice for Europe. Spent the last 10 years or so working with VCs, PEs, founders, and as a strategic growth partner. Typically, they'll be kind of quite early stage B2B SaaS software vendors. So sweet spot will be anything sort of post-founder led sales at product market fit from kind of startup to scale up stage. But yeah, 2024. 23. I'll probably let's just not talk about 23. I think we can just eliminate that from our memory. But I do feel like it's important to give some context to what we're seeing on the market. So yeah, 2024. I think could be a great year for tech in general. You know, a year of potential, like year of the IPO. Right. I think we've seen some pretty big things happen towards the back end of last year. Klaviyo was probably one of the biggest tech IPOs for a number of years, and I think that kind of set the scene a little bit. And we're also seeing a number of companies that have announced that they're increasing sales hiring. So I think Salesforce announced they're going to hire an extra 3,000 people in GTM globally. Monday.com, the project management software vendor, have announced they're hiring an extra 25% to their sales force. Even companies like MongoDB and Okta they announced their best quarters, I think, Q3, Q4 last year. So there's a lot of kind of Series C, D, E startups that are showing pretty good metrics as well. So that are flirting with that kind of 250 million revenue mark. So I just feel like there's a lot of companies who probably will push the button. Databricks, Stripe, OpenAI, who we all know. So 2024, yeah, I think it will be the year of the comeback. But with the comeback, obviously, that's going to provide some challenges in itself. I mean, Joe, you've probably seen it. The domain or the markets of 21, 22 have kind of created, in comparison to 23, have created this kind of fluctuating of high performance, low performance. So the challenge is to find out who the good reps are to the bad reps.
Yeah, I think even talking about last year was difficult for a lot of folks. There's a lot of restructuring, a lot of wait and see, right, when it comes to hiring and just expanding different go-to-market motions for all of these SaaS organizations, basically at every single level and maturity of company in the market. This year, everyone does seem much more bullish, right, on sort of the buying cycles in terms of the customer penetration, in terms of the level of investment that they're willing or able to get right in the market that's going to accelerate a lot of these things. But I still think 2024, and hence why we're having the show here today, right? To talk about how you can find the top 10% of sellers out there, is it's going to be quite polarizing, right? In terms of who are exceptionally successful, right? And a market that's getting better, right? But still challenging and different than anything we've seen in the last 4 to 5 years, maybe even longer than that, right? And the best reps out there, I mean, it could be a breakout year for many of them, right? So I'm already tracking that we're speaking to for doing probably their best year in their company's history or otherwise, right? But it's also going to filter out a lot of the lower performing reps like we've seen over the last 18 months, right? That aren't necessarily suited for the right market that they're going through right now, and the type of selling motion that you need to go through to be successful. So that's why I think it's probably more crucial than it's been in the last 3 or 4 years to, at the onset of looking for, courting, and recruiting your sales talent to expand your go-to-market team, you have to be hyper analytical and very nuanced in your approach, right? Of how you're qualifying and finding and courting those people, right? To make sure you're getting the people that are going to have those breakout years, as opposed to being part of the filtering exercise with the people that aren't, right? And that's what this is all framed around.
Yeah, great, good analysis. And actually, I saw this statistic. It was released. There was a report released by Guy Rubin, the CEO of Ebster, and pretty amazing. So 2023, 69% of reps actually missed their quota, and top performers were over 800% more likely to overcome objections. Now, I mean, that's just insane. So I think, finding these people is going to be important to how your business grows and how you can take it to the next level. So yeah, hopefully we can help you navigate some of the challenges in this webinar. So yeah, Joe, do you want to kind of kick us off with the first topic then?
Yeah, the skills that best define what good go-to-market talent and good account executives are, right, in sort of the market. I think it's, for me and us, I'd like to say that it's pretty simple, right? And we can boil it down to a couple of different things. And this also bleeds into what sort of separates the top 10% from the rest, right? Is the best attributes that you have out there, right? And these salespeople, and the ones that are going to ramp the quickest and probably find the most qualified success in your business, right? Faster than anyone else, or people that have been there and done it before, as businesses as closely aligned to your market, your industry, your growth stage, right, as humanly possible. Ones that are at least have a trend line of clarity and quantification and all of the metrics that they have associated with their jobs, right? People that, even if they've had 1 or 2 down years across their 10 years of selling or more, right, are consistently hitting quotas and doing everything that they need to sort of come across in a way that's generating revenue and being able to curb the concerns of the market, right, through their own behalf, and not simply riding with it through sort of the waves that we've seen. And then people that are process driven and motivated, right? I think it goes back to, a lot of people have read that book Atomic Habits by James Clear, right? And people fall to the level of their processes, right, as opposed to falling to the level of their qualifications. I think that's the quote, right? And if you can suss out the type of people that are processed and determined, right, in the way that they work under every single circumstance, when markets align, when opportunities are presented to them, that process prevails more than anything else, right? And being able to pinpoint the people that can do that on a consistent basis and not ebb and flow, right, in the way that they're actually working, regardless of the way the market is working, I think is the best way to sort of find standout people that can be successful, and not just this time, not just last time, right, but every time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's one of the biggest things, isn't it? But even if we're looking at a broader kind of skills analysis, I mean, this, I guess for me, this question it's just totally subjective, because it just depends on what the task is, like what needs to be done, what actually needs to be accomplished. Like, are you a are you a legacy firm that's expanding into new geos, or are you a startup that's just hit product market fit? Are you a 1 million revenue org? Are you a 50 million revenue org, right? So I do feel like there's always a baseline criteria for analysis. Like I'd always encourage people to look at things like have they sold a product with a similar like value proposition? I mean, is it similar in terms of the technical complexity and buying cycle? Like, have they sold to the same ICP, or have they sold to market or industry vertical, or what's the style actual sales process? Like all of those things should be baseline. But then, as I said, like it just depends on what needs to be done, right? If you're like, for example, if you're an early stage vendor, let's say 1 to 5 million, you've just hit a repeatable sales process, sales motion, and you're hiring a few reps, like you kind of need people who've been in that environment before. And you shouldn't really be necessarily chasing the big brand name. I've seen so many founders be like, okay, right, well, that person's worked at SAP and Salesforce, and I want to hire them, but that's not what you need right now, right? But I think even having said that, like again, like depending on what stage of business at, because if you're hiring for those type of people, and they're like maybe like an AppD or a BMC, like if they're like 10 years ago, those people would probably be great for a startup, right? But now, they're not the people you need. So it's all about like, kind of like looking for those, and we'll talk about it a lot, but you don't want to look through the positives in people. You also want to look through the red flags, right? So again, I use this kind of startup analogy, but if you're hiring a rep for a startup and then someone's gone, small company, massive company, why is that? Did they find it too difficult to be in a small company, right? Could be a red flag. But then if they went through a small company through to an acquisition, then it kind of changes the dynamics a little bit. Yeah. So I always think that the baseline skills are good, but then, it just depends on the task, right?
Yeah. I think that bleeds really well into our next question, which probably should be our densest topic here, is the attributes that are separating the top 10% of people, and then what we're actually doing to qualify and search for those persons, right, that are successful in their current jobs and can translate that success into whatever it is that our clients or our partners are looking for. To me, I think, and some of you guys that have worked with us in the past that are listening, right, you've heard this pitch before. It comes down to a lot of our search methodology. Many of us in our go-to-market practice have spent time both in high-velocity contingent search and staffing type environments, but also done very bespoke, nuanced headhunting and executive search type projects, right? And the way I like to think about the way we're going to market, right, is sort of bridging those gaps and taking a lot of the attributes of a traditional executive search type model, right, from a direct headhunting, from a competitive analysis, from a market mapping and general search fueled intelligence or intelligence fueled search type process, right, and bringing that to a speed and velocity that matches the startups that don't necessarily have 6 months to wait, right, for the right person. The biggest thing that I think we define our searches around, right, is exactly what you said there, right? It's product and market compatibility, and then stage experience and selling methodologies that match the type of company that they would be going into, right? It's all based obviously on the experience that they have doing those similar things, right? So the first thing that we're looking for, say we have a hyper nuanced search for an enterprise account executive at, say, a cybersecurity business, is finding out and scoping the level of technical acumen that this person needs to have and the technical capacity that they need to have, right, to be able to sell in a similar environment with a similar density and scope of product, right, that you're going to market with, right? Have they sold at a similar stage of a business, right? Which is, if you're a startup, do they have experience going to market with companies that don't have a massive reputation and are maybe an innovation leader in the market, but not necessarily a penetration leader in the market, right? It's a lot different, obviously, selling for Salesforce, right, than selling for Mr. Series A startup, right, out of San Francisco that's got 50 customers on right now. The way that you're explaining, pitching, and bringing in different people into that sales cycle, right? The way that you understand the right types of buyer personas, the right types of I guess, target markets and industries and ICPs that you're going after, right, is fundamentally different, right, in those different stages of companies, but it's probably the most critical factor of finding out if someone is a fit for your business or not, if they're going to ramp quickly, and if they're actually going to, I don't know, be able to comprehend selling an emotion that you guys have had success in selling while still accelerating it and bringing it to the next level as your company grows.
Yeah, I think it's good. And I think everything that you've said there is, yeah, that's kind of the quantifiable aspect, which is obviously, super important in terms of what hiring managers look for in terms of the personality traits. Like number one was intelligence. Number two was character. Number three was grit. And number four was coachability. Now, obviously, there are different ways to look for these types of things within reps, but intelligence not just being like book smart, but emotional intelligence and character. We talk about things like growth mindset and overcoming challenges and adversity. Grit would probably be more focused on like rejection handling, and then the coachability side probably on can I learn, can I rep learn, can I rep adapt. And we've seen those kind of criteria be labeled across the board for some of the most iconic software companies globally that have ever been in history, and usually it's around those four bases. So I think that kind of leads pretty well into the next question, which is interview questions that surface. That's a weird sentence. Interview questions that surface 10% of AEs. I'll start on this one if you don't mind. So difficult one, because how can you evaluate candidates? Like, this is the best reps, they know how to sell themselves, right? This is what they're really good at. But I think that the number one thing by far for a good enterprise rep will be the revenue they can bring to the company. Like, did they hit quota? Did they overperform? Can they talk through in detail with confidence on their numbers? Like that kind of stuff, reps they should just know it inside out. And I guess the challenging thing is, again, is this bounce back of markets, like the bullish markets of 21, 22, where everyone was, every SaaS software seller was probably doing 150, 200% against their number, versus the lowly fluctuating numbers of 23. But I think that, that's where people should be looking for those consistency, the consistency of numbers outside of that, looking for longevity. But I think what's a few of the key topics that we saw come out of that. Number one was on pipeline generation. Number two was on objection handling, and number three was on relationship management, and that's more on identifying champions. I mean, it sounds like really kind of simple stuff, but for I guess like a pipeline generation side, it could be a question more along the lines of, okay, so how do you approach prospecting and lead generation to consistently fill your pipeline with qualified opportunities? If you talk about objection handling, again, similar thing, right? Tell me about a time when you've been forced into particularly challenging objection from prospects. What did you do? How did you overcome it? Did you still secure the sell? And then the relationship management side, or building champions, should be probably more on techniques, and what did you do to build relationships, and how did you do it through the sales process? So all the answers that you should be getting really are solid, measurable answers with examples of success, and then on top of that, outcomes that you're able to measure it.
Yeah, I think the important piece, once you've identified, right, that a person is selling to your target audience, right, or selling within your industry domain vertical, or selling a comparable level of technology and type of technology, right? Is an example of cybersecurity, right? Again, right, that they can be successful in at least comprehending the type of motion that you're going through. Like, you have to double tap on those quantifiables, right, as early and as often as possible, right, and qualifying these reps in and out of your company, right? It's kind of the beauty of hiring sales roles, is everything that you need to know about them being successful or not in their previous engagements is completely black or white, right? Yes, there's nuances to it, and there's differences in market, and sometimes you join a company that doesn't have the best product, you're oversold the dream, and there are exceptions to this, right? But that doesn't mean there shouldn't be a consistent trend line and quantifiable success and drilling into your quota, hitting your revenue number, and making profits for a business, right? And it's funny. It seems like it's a very obvious thing, but I've seen too many sales leaders in my career, right? Maybe not get to the level of depth that they need to, right, to truly understand the actual quantifiable impact of these people, right, and all of their previous businesses, and then sometimes they flop, right? If they don't do that proper screening out like really early and really often in the process. And I think it's going much deeper, like what you're saying there, Nick, than just asking, did you hit your quota or not, right? What was your quota? Like what quantifiables did you set yourself every single week? Not what your company set you, but what you set yourself at the rep level and at your own desk level, right? That say, I have to book X amount of meetings or have X amount of calls or foster X amount of relationships to generate this much pipeline that's going to convert you to this much revenue and this window of time, right? And if they can't give you exceptionally clear and quantifiable answers, even if those clear and quantifiable answers aren't necessarily up to par, right? The fact that they can be super clear, right? That's the greatest way to, I don't know, avoid ambiguity and avoid leaving it up to chance, right? If this person's going to be successful in your environment, and getting into, what actual actions are they taking to build that pipeline? Do they have a BDR motion that's helping support meeting setting for them? Do they use external vendors? Do they use a partnership program that they built there? Are they getting fed by demand generation and lead generation from their marketing team or marketing partners externally? Or are they just hitting the phone and trying to build relationships and getting out to field marketing events and shaking hands, like everyone that's good in our industry, in the top 10% of reps in particular, should be able to tell you exactly how they booked every meeting and generated every dollar of pipeline and generated every dollar of revenue for the business, like to an exceptionally clear degree, right? And if you're not drilling into that very early in your process, you're kind of putting yourself at risk, right? For not knowing enough about this person and not being incredibly clear, sure, right? If they're going to be just a successful process and metric rep that can come in and have an impact on your business. And then it's the market, and then it's the buyer personas, and then it's everything else, right? That shows, do they comprehend, right, your type of motion? But you have to have those facts that back it up before really anything else, and you take it any step further.
Yeah, love it. And I think we're kind of coming up to the last sort of couple of minutes of the webinar, but just last question, we've got anecdotes, observations from recently completed searches, just to maybe to keep it a little bit short from my end. Actually, I had a conversation with a friend of mine. He's a CRO for a quite a sort of highly matrixed sales or quite a large software company. But I think one of the things he said to me was, sometimes you don't get it right. Simple as that. Like sometimes all the tips, all the tricks, all the interviews, all the references, sometimes it just doesn't work out. But I think you just said like the what you do about it is what's most important, right? Evaluating really early day behavior, so effort, judgment, understanding of product, business, engagement with staff, all of these early performance indicators should really provide offers of potential rather than just kind of short-term pipeline. And he just said, like it's pretty obvious in the first 90 days of people who are going to work out and are not going to work out. So make the call on it earlier rather than later. But I don't know if you've got anything to add for the last couple of minutes, Joey?
No, I think that's a great synopsis of it. The one thing I'll say is, well, we've placed probably just in the last 12 months and even in the down market, at least 50 of these enterprise account executives at high levels using this methodology, right? And many times changing the methodology of the way that these CROs and VPs of sales are hiring reps into their businesses, and taking product market compatibility, quantifiable success, and just stage experience and selling methodologies to the forefront of the way that they're qualifying these people. And I don't know, we've just seen people transform the way that they're hiring people, the level of success that they're having, and their reps over not just the first 1 or 2 quarters, but the first 4, 5, 6 quarters, right? That you can really suss people out, particularly in these longer enterprise sales motions. And the people that are implementing this type of methodology just have, I think, a massive leg up in just the confidence that they can see in their reps and the knowledge of their reps to bring their products to market, right? Whether it's an early stage startup or a later stage enterprise that's going through their various levels of maturity. And it just leaves so many things less up to chance, right? If you're able to take a much more strategic, quantifiable, and matrixed approach to the way you're actually bringing in talent, it gives you such a better leg up and not just qualifying them, but also courting that talent, right? Because people want to work for people that know what they're looking for and know what good looks like. And that instills confidence in them, right? And not just helps with your qualification, but helps with your attraction of candidates, right? To an incredible degree.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's time on us, half an hour in. We'll obviously record this for the people who didn't have a chance to make it, but also we'll send out a link to our new go-to-market recruitment zone. Joey's lovely face right on the front of it. I don't know if you want to tell everyone about that.
Yeah, we've got some wonderful resources in there, whether you're sort of laying the foundations, right, for your actual search and looking for more tangible content on how to implement some of these methodologies, from a competitor analysis to an interview questioning and qualification sort of scheme. We've got job description libraries on there that can help you build out the specs for these jobs, and just a lot of helpful content. This webinar will be embedded on there as well for anyone that wants to play it back and share it with their lovely friends and colleagues in the industry. And we'll be continuously adding to that, including your lovely face, Nick, with some more really helpful content and just real gentle tips and tricks, right? And real tactics for how you can sort of implement better processes for qualifying, attracting, and then courting these reps that are going to make a bigger impact on your business.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.